There are moments in life so perfectly, unexpectedly satisfying, they almost feel scripted. Watching that entitled woman, the one who'd tried to bully me out of my first-class seat, being personally escorted by the flight attendant down the entire length of the plane to the dismal last row, that was one of those moments. Her face, usually arranged in a mask of smug superiority, was now a grotesque canvas of shocked fury and utter humiliation. Just minutes before, she'd been screeching about her importance, her rights, her seat. Now, the only right she had was the right to squeeze into what was likely a middle seat next to the lavatories for the next 5 hours. And the best part? She had absolutely no one to blame but herself. Her own arrogant words, bellowed for all to hear, had been her undoing. As I leaned back into the plush leather of seat 1A, the seat I'd earned and defended, I couldn't help but smile. Oh, karma can be a beautiful thing, especially at 35,000 feet. Now, let me be clear, flying first class is not my usual reality. Far from it. My name's Sarah, and I spend my days knee-deep in spreadsheets and deadlines as a project manager in the tech industry. It's challenging work, often stressful, demanding long hours and a thick skin. As a single woman trying to climb that ladder, I've learned to be focused, organized, maybe even a little too good at delaying gratification. My work travel has always been strictly coach, the tight seats, the questionable snacks, the battle for overhead bin space. That was my normal. But I had a dream, a quiet goal I'd been working towards for years. Every single business trip, every expense I could possibly justify putting on my airline rewards credit card, added miles to my account. It became this little beacon of hope. One day, I told myself, I'm cashing all this in for something truly decadent. A reward for the grind. That day arrived after the project to end all projects. 6 solid months of chaos, pressure that felt physical, navigating egos and impossible timelines. We somehow pulled it off, launched successfully, but I felt like a wrung-out dish rag. My boss, seeing the state of me, practically ordered me to take 2 weeks off. Immediately. And I knew exactly how I was going to start that vacation. I was flying across the country to finally visit my sister, and I was doing it in style. I logged into my airline account, looked at that beautiful, accumulated mileage balance, took a deep breath, and clicked confirm. First class, round trip. Using almost every single mile I'd hoarded for over 3 years. The sheer act of booking it felt liberating. It wasn't just about the wider seat or the free champagne, though those were definitely appealing. It felt like acknowledging my own hard work, like finally giving myself permission to enjoy something purely luxurious, something I genuinely earned. I practically skipped through the airport preparations. Packing felt exciting, not like a chore. Going through security felt less like an ordeal and more like a prelude. I couldn't wait to sink into that seat, stretch out my legs, maybe read a book without someone's elbow digging into my ribs. I envisioned peace, quiet, maybe even a decent meal on a real plate. It was my reward, my sanctuary in the sky. Little did I know, a Category 5 Karen named Victoria was about to make landfall directly in my anticipated zone of tranquility. The boarding process started smoothly enough. First-class passengers were invited first, and I felt a little thrill walking down the empty jet bridge. Finding seat 1A, the window seat right at the very front, felt like winning the lottery. It was even more spacious than I'd imagined. Soft leather, ridiculous amount of legroom, a little amenity kit waiting patiently on the side table. Pure bliss. I carefully placed my small carry-on in the bin directly above me. Plenty of space, no fighting needed, and settled into the seat with a sigh that came from the depths of my soul. This was worth it. I pulled out the novel I'd been saving, ready to disappear into another world. The calm lasted maybe 5 minutes. Just as the main boarding crush began, she arrived. Victoria. She didn't walk into the first-class cabin. She made an entrance, trailing an air of harried importance and immediate displeasure. Late 50s, probably, sporting that aggressively angled blonde bob that seems designed to look perpetually disapproving. Oversized designer sunglasses perched on her head like a tiara, indoors. A gigantic, logo-emblazoned tote bag swung from her shoulder, and her phone was already clutched in her hand, screen lit, as if documenting potential grievances was her primary function. Her sharp eyes, magnified slightly by expensive-looking but severe glasses that replaced the sunglasses, scanned the cabin, instantly dismissing the other passengers before landing squarely on me, in seat 1A. She marched directly towards me, stopping uncomfortably close, invading my personal space bubble with the force field of her strong perfume. "Excuse me," she snapped. The tone wasn't polite. It was an accusation. "You are in my seat." I was momentarily stunned by her sheer forcefulness. "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't believe so," I replied, trying to keep my voice pleasant, professional even. Years of dealing with difficult stakeholders kicked in. "My boarding pass has me listed for 1A. I held it up slightly, the assignment clearly visible. She waved a dismissive hand, adorned with several large rings and impeccably manicured nails. "That's impossible. I always sit in 1A. The airline knows this. There's obviously been a mistake with your ticket. You'll need to move." "Okay," politeness officially failing. "My boarding pass says 1A. I repeated, my voice firmer now. I wasn't going to be steamrolled. "Perhaps your seat is 1B? I indicated the adjacent aisle seat, still empty. Her lips pressed together into a razor-thin line. Her perfectly powdered face flushed slightly. "Don't be absurd. I booked this seat months ago. It's probably some computer glitch. Just move, please. I have important calls to make." She actually nudged my leg with her enormous tote bag. The nerve! My own frustration simmered. "I'm not moving," I stated flatly. "This is my assigned seat, confirmed on my boarding pass. If you believe there's an error, you need to speak with the gate agent or a flight attendant." She glared daggers at me, then glanced back at the increasingly crowded aisle. Seeing no immediate backup for her entitlement, and clearly not wanting to cause a scene that delayed her settling in further, she let out an exaggerated huff. She slammed her tote bag onto the aisle seat, 1B, and squeezed past me with excessive force, bumping my shoulder as she did. She didn't bother putting her bag overhead. Instead, she shoved it aggressively under the seat in front of her, the corner digging painfully into my available foot space. Immediately, her phone was out, fingers flying across the screen with furious intensity. The atmosphere, which had felt so serene just moments before, now crackled with hostility. My beautiful bubble of first-class bliss had been punctured by sheer, unadulterated entitlement. I had a terrible feeling my peaceful flight was officially over before it even took off. Victoria didn't let up. As soon as we were airborne and the seatbelt sign blinked off, her campaign of irritation escalated from passive aggression to active disruption. The loud sighs continued, punctuated by theatrical eye rolls whenever a flight attendant passed. The muttering became louder, more pointed. "Unbelievable, the lack of consideration," she'd say, pretending to inspect her nails. "Some people just don't belong here," aimed vaguely in my direction, while she loudly adjusted her cashmere wrap. Then came the incident with the flight attendant. Jennifer, the lead FA, came by offering drink refills. I politely declined, still nursing my water. Victoria flagged her down dramatically. "Flight attendant. This reading light," she pointed towards my overhead light which wasn't even on, "is positioned terribly. It's shining right in my eyes." Jennifer calmly checked, confirmed it was off, and politely explained she couldn't adjust the fixture itself. Victoria huffed. "Well, fine. But can you ask her," she jerked her head towards me, "to be mindful if she turns it on? Some of us are trying to rest." I hadn't touched the light. Jennifer gave me a quick, almost imperceptible apologetic glance and moved on. Victoria smirked, clearly pleased with scoring that petty point. A little later, while rummaging aggressively in her oversized tote bag at her feet, the one still occupying prime real estate in my footwell, she managed to knock over her half-full glass of sparkling water, which she placed precariously close to the edge of her tray table. It splashed significantly, soaking the carpet right next to my smaller, fabric carry-on bag I had tucked safely under my own seat area. "Oh dear," she exclaimed, with the theatricality of a bad actress. "So clumsy. These tray tables are simply inadequate." She made a half-hearted swipe at the puddle with a cocktail napkin before immediately pressing her call button. "Flight attendant. I've had a spill. Need immediate assistance." She didn't apologize to me, didn't check if my bag got wet. It was thankfully just missed, just created more drama for the crew. I gritted my teeth, took a deep breath, and tried to focus on my book, pretending I existed in a different dimension where entitled Karens couldn't reach me. But it was getting harder. The constant low-level hostility was grating on my already frayed nerves. And then, the piece de resistance, the phone call from hell. As soon as the electronic device chime sounded, Victoria had her phone clamped to her ear, launching into a conversation at near-shouting volume. No earbuds, no consideration for anyone around her. "Charles? Darling, you simply won't believe the horror show this flight is turning into," she boomed, ensuring everyone within a 3-row radius could hear every word. "Yes, first class. Though you wouldn't know it. The service is atrocious, absolutely third-rate. And the woman next to me, honestly, Charles, where do they find these people? Zero breeding." Plopped herself right into my seat. "One alpha. You know I always have one alpha, and refuse to budge." The sheer nerve. Probably used some company points. Doesn't appreciate the privilege. On and on she went, a torrent of complaints about the champagne temperature, the inadequate snacks, the flight attendant's imagined attitude, looping constantly back to the injustice of my presence in her designated seat. Other passengers were visibly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, exchanging weary glances. One older gentleman across the aisle actually caught my eye and rolled his eyes in shared suffering. The flight attendants were trying to conduct the meal service, but their professional smiles were strained. My muscles were clenched tight. My peaceful reward, the luxurious escape I'd looked forward to for months, was being systematically destroyed by this woman's toxic entitlement. I couldn't read. I couldn't relax. I couldn't even think straight with her voice grating on my nerves like sandpaper. Finally, pushed past my limit, I waited for a tiny pause in her monologue. Leaning slightly towards her, I kept my voice as low and steady as I could manage. "Excuse me," I murmured. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but your phone call is quite loud. Would you mind lowering your voice just a bit?" Her head whipped around, eyes blazing behind her glasses. "Are you actually speaking to me?" she hissed, covering the phone receiver with theatrical outrage. "How dare you try to police my conversation? I am conducting important business. Unlike some people," her eyes swept over me dismissively, "who are clearly just taking up space they haven't properly paid for." She turned back to the phone, her voice now amplified deliberately, practically bouncing off the cabin walls. "You hear that, Charles? This nobody next to me has the audacity to complain about my call. In first class. I pay thousands for these tickets, and this is the sort of element they allow? Unacceptable. I'm reporting this entire flight crew. There will be consequences." The humiliation washed over me, hot and prickling. My hands were balled into fists so tight my knuckles were white. How could one person be so deliberately cruel, so stunningly lacking in self-awareness? I shrank back into my seat, feeling a burning sense of injustice and helplessness. What could I do? Make a scene? Stoop to her level? No, but letting her win, letting her completely ruin this long-awaited treat, that felt unbearable too. Hours more of this flight stretched before me like a prison sentence. Victoria, puffed up with her perceived victory, continued her performance, clearly trying to impress Charles with her ability to command attention and demand satisfaction. She recounted her version of the seat dispute, embellished her interactions with the crew, and generally painted herself as a long-suffering VIP enduring peasant-level service. It was nauseating. And then, in her desperate need to justify her claim to my window seat, in her boastful attempt to explain why the airline should have recognized her inherent superiority, she slipped. The fatal error, delivered with smug confidence. And I specifically told that clueless girl at the gate. Victoria crowed into her phone, her voice carrying clearly in a momentary lull in cabin noise, that I absolutely required seat 1A for, medical reasons. She actually chuckled conspiratorially. A little white lie, Charles, you understand, but necessary. Especially since my actual booking was way back in steerage, somewhere in row 12 or something utterly ghastly. Can you imagine me back there? So, I just charmed my way on early and told them where I belonged. They obviously mixed up the seating chart, putting this person here instead of me. Silence. My own breathing seemed to stop. Row 12? Steerage? Lied to the gate agent? It was like a key turning in a lock. Everything snapped into focus with blinding clarity. Her instant aggression about the seat wasn't just entitlement. It was panic. Her refusal to show her boarding pass wasn't arrogance. It was concealment. Her constant complaints weren't just bad manners. They were a smokescreen. She wasn't just an entitled Karen being obnoxious. She was, according to her own boastful admission, a fraud who had potentially lied and cheated her way into first class and was now trying to bully me out of the specific seat I had legitimately booked and paid for with years of saved miles. A surge of cold, electric anger replaced the helpless frustration. She wasn't just rude, she was fundamentally dishonest. And she had just handed me, on a silver platter, the exact information needed to bring her entire charade crashing down. Her arrogance was her downfall. I glanced over. Victoria was still chattering away, oblivious, basking in the imagined glory of her cleverness. My heart was pounding, a drumbeat of adrenaline and righteous fury. Okay, Sarah, I told myself. Deep breaths.
Stay calm.
Wait for the perfect moment. She started this battle, but I was about to finish it. Suddenly, the remaining hours of the flight didn't seem so daunting after all. I let her finish her call, stewing in my newfound knowledge. The meal service progressed. I politely ordered my choice, trying to act nonchalant, even as my mind raced, planning my next move. Timing was everything. I needed to speak to the lead flight attendant, Jennifer, discreetly. My opportunity came as Jennifer was clearing trays nearby. I waited until she was momentarily free, then caught her eye and gave a slight, urgent nod. She immediately understood something was amiss and approached my seat, leaning in slightly. "Is there something else, ma'am?" she asked, her voice low and professional. "Jennifer," I whispered, making sure my voice wouldn't carry to Victoria, who was now noisily complaining about the wine selection. "I need to report something extremely serious, further to our earlier conversation." Jennifer's expression sharpened. She listened intently, her professional calm unwavering, as I recounted Victoria's boastful admission on the phone. She explicitly stated, I emphasized, keeping my voice barely audible, that her original booking was way back in row 12, and that she lied to the gate agent, claiming a medical need for seat 1A, to get onto the plane early and into this cabin. Jennifer's eyes widened almost imperceptibly, then narrowed with understanding. She admitted that? "On the phone call you overheard?" "Yes," I confirmed firmly.
Loudly.
She was bragging about deceiving the gate agent. It explains why she was so aggressive about this specific seat and refused to show her own pass earlier. Jennifer straightened up, her posture radiating quiet authority. "Thank you for relaying this information accurately, Ms. Davis. Please excuse me for one moment." She moved swiftly to the galley, consulted her tablet again, and had a brief, hushed conversation with another crew member. I watched, holding my breath. This was it. Please let this work. A couple of minutes later, Jennifer returned, her face composed but resolute. She walked directly to Victoria. "Madam," she began, her voice calm but firm, cutting through Victoria's complaints about the Chardonnay. "I need to see your boarding pass again, please." Victoria looked up annoyed. "What now?" "I told you there's no need." "Your boarding pass." "Now, please," Jennifer insisted, her tone leaving no room for argument. Other passengers nearby fell silent, sensing the shift in atmosphere. With an exasperated sigh, Victoria rummaged in her tote and produced the pass. Jennifer took it, compared it meticulously to her tablet, her expression hardening. "Madam," Jennifer stated clearly, her voice audible to those nearby, "as I suspected, our records confirm your assigned seat is 12B. In the main cabin. There is no record of any authorized upgrade or seat change." Victoria's face drained of color, then flooded with a mottled red. That's ridiculous. It's a mistake. I have status. My husband. Your status does not grant unauthorized access to a different cabin, madam," Jennifer interrupted coolly. "Furthermore, your disruptive behavior, including harassing the passenger in 1A, loud and abusive language, and now this clear discrepancy with your assigned seating, violates airline regulations and Federal Air Marshal Service guidelines." "Keep calm, Sarah, I thought, just watch." Jennifer continued, laying out the options like a judge delivering a verdict. "You have created a disturbance and occupied a seat fraudulently. You can collect your belongings immediately, and I will escort you to your assigned seat, 12B, if it remains unoccupied. Alternatively, if you refuse or continue this behavior, we will have security meet the aircraft upon landing to address these issues. This could result in denied future travel on this airline and potentially involve law enforcement." Victoria stared, utterly speechless for a moment. Her jaw worked, her hands trembled slightly. She looked around frantically, her eyes landing on me. I met her gaze steadily, calmly. There was no escape. The other passengers were openly watching now, a mixture of curiosity and distinct disapproval on their faces. I thought I saw the man across the aisle suppress a smile. The fight visibly drained out of her. The threats about her husband, her lawyers, her status, they all died on her lips, useless against the calm, documented facts and the real consequences Jennifer presented. With a sound that was half sob, half strangled shriek of pure fury, she began snatching her things.
"Fine.
Fine," she spat, her voice thick with venom and humiliation. "This airline is trash. You'll all regret this." "This way, madam," Jennifer said, her voice neutral, and gestured firmly down the aisle. And then the walk of shame began. Jennifer didn't just send her back. She led her. Past my seat. Past the bulkhead. Through the curtains separating the cabins. Down the economy plus aisle. Down the main cabin aisle. A slow, deliberate procession past dozens of passengers, many of whom were now openly watching the spectacle of the furious blonde woman in expensive clothes being marched towards the very back of the plane. It was magnificent. The moment the curtains swished shut behind them, a collective sigh seemed to ripple through the first-class cabin. The tension evaporated like mist. Several people exchanged quiet smiles. The gentleman across the aisle leaned over slightly. "Well handled," he murmured to me with an approving nod. Jennifer returned shortly, her professional composure firmly back in place. She stopped at my seat. "Ms. Davis, again. My sincere apologies for that entire unpleasant situation. Thank you for your patience and for providing the necessary information calmly. No passenger should have to endure that kind of behavior." "Thank you, Jennifer," I replied, relief washing over me in a warm wave. "You handled it perfectly. It's part of ensuring a safe environment for everyone," she said with a small smile. "Now, please, let me get you another glass of champagne. And rest assured, the rest of your flight will be peaceful." And it was utterly, blissfully peaceful. I savored every single moment. The comfortable seat felt even more luxurious. The food tasted like a gourmet meal. The quiet felt like a precious gift. I leaned back, watched the clouds drift by, and allowed the immense stress of the past few hours and the preceding 6 months to finally melt away. It struck me then how easy it might have been to just give in, to move seats, to endure the misery quietly to avoid confrontation. But standing up for myself, calmly using the truth when her own arrogance provided the ammunition, felt incredibly empowering. Seeing Victoria face such direct, fitting consequences for her appalling behavior wasn't just about revenge. It was about restoring a little bit of balance. She demanded the best through lies and bullying. She received the absolute worst through her own actions. And the quiet satisfaction of that perfect, karmic justice? That was the sweetest amenity of all on my long overdue, hard-earned flight.